Hello and welcome back to another movie review. As always, my name is Kelly, and as the title said, I just got out of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. Technically part 1, but they didn't put that in the title for some reason. And if you can't tell, I am a massive Demon Slayer fan. Obviously, here's a picture of me at my first movie screening when I went with friends to go watch it dubbed. Yes, I watched it dubbed. I also went and saw it subbed as well. I even got this awesome light up sword. See? Suffice it to say, I am a very big Demon Slayer fan, and I've been looking forward to this movie pretty much since it got announced. However, I will say I was a little on the skeptical side about this. There are plenty of people outside the anime community who don't know that Ufotable has done this before, and it was a big movie event as well, when they basically took the final Fate storyline, Fate Heaven's Feel, and split it into 3 movies. I've even talked about those before on my best list and reviews, as well as one that never got published, but, that's par for the course for me. And I know Ufotable pretty much will bring their A game to this. However, I was worried that they were going to compromise some of the story, much like they did with the Heaven's Feel movies, in the adaptation of this film. And I can say they actually kind of did the opposite. And that's kind of a negative, and pretty much the only negative in this entire movie. Going into this without spoilers at first, this movie is amazing, top tier. The animation reaches a level you didn't think Ufotable could do. At this point, Ufotable is the bar, but then they keep saying, hold my beer, and raising that bar over and over and over again. They did it with Fate, they did it with Demon Slayer, and now they're doing it with the Demon Slayer movies. It is insane what Ufotable seems to be able to do. The joke is that they're called the Unlimited Budget Works, a play on the Fate series Unlimited Blade Works. But it really does feel like that. They put all of their money to the eye candy on screen, and by God, by the end of it, you just need a smoke, because it's just intense, and it's a lot. And that's not to say that there's just a bunch of pretty colors or anything. They put the effort into everything. The framing, the camera work, legitimately things move in ways you don't think possible, and everything's so blended together that most of the time you can't tell that what you're looking at is CGI. And because I know a lot of the people who watch my videos go for movie reviews, not anime specifically, if you know anything about anime and CGI, they tend not to mix well. Unless Ufotable is doing it, because holy God. And the movie gives you pretty much no time to breathe right from the get-go, as the movie starts immediately where Season 4 ended. Everyone's falling into the castle, and things are going down. And that's kind of what it's going to be like for the entirety of all 3 of these movies. I have read the manga on this one, so I do know what's going to happen, and I can tell you from that knowledge, every single one of these movies is pretty much going to be a bare-knuckle brawl. It is a straight fight to the end, and it's pretty much always going to go straight into it. There's not really going to be any downtime until we get to the one negative of the movie. You can't really jump into this movie. You have to have seen at least the first couple of seasons to go into this. You maybe can skip most of the Hashira training arc stuff. The only thing important is the last episode. Everything else is pretty bad. But even then, you have to have at least watched a good chunk of Demon Slayer. Unlike Mugen Train, where you could basically jump into it and not be lost because, the concept is fairly simple. At this point, things have happened that if you just haven't seen them, you were going to be lost. And that is my complete segue into you should go watch Demon Slayer. If you haven't watched it yet, what are you doing? Go binge all 4 seasons, then go to this movie. You will not be disappointed. But that does swing into the negative we gotta talk about. Because if you've watched Demon Slayer, pretty much most of Demon Slayer is set up in the same kind of format. They introduce a demon, they have the big long fights with the demons that usually take multiple episodes, and then they usually give you, after the demon's gone, their backstory and allows you to kind of really feel for them in a tragic sense, because they usually were good-ish people before turning into demons. Some were bad, but even then, they were bad because of circumstance, not because they were actually evil. There are a couple exceptions to that, where there are just straight-up evil demons, and you don't really give a crap about their backstories. But one of the demons in particular here, his fight scene takes almost a third of the movie, and then after they finally do take him out, we get his entire backstory, which takes almost 40 minutes attached to the end of this movie. And this movie is 2.5 hours long. 40 minutes of that is just explaining this guy's backstory after they beat him. And I will tell you this right now, that this last 40 minutes drags a lot. It's a really good backstory. It's probably the best written backstory in the entire series. I think it's at least seconded only by Rui from season 1. But there is no getting around the fact that this makes you feel every second of this guy's backstory. And it is a slog. Admittedly, my knowledge on this guy's backstory in particular is a little fuzzy. I haven't reread the manga in a little bit. But from what I remember, they expanded on this in the movie. And they went into a little more detail, which is appreciated. Because again, it is a very well written backstory. But it is 30 to 40 minutes long when a lot of people just want to get out of there. As I said before, I saw this movie twice, once dubbed, once subbed. And both times, I felt the length when they went into this backstory. And the second time, when I watched it sub, there were people who actually left the theater because they realized the movie was over and there was nothing much more they needed. They left 30 to 40 minutes early because of how long this backstory is and just how much of a ride it comes after. Now, normally this isn't a problem for Demon Slayer as a series because, you're watching it episode to episode, and usually that backstory episode is the next week's episode. So, you just had a week off from Demon Slayer, and then you're coming back, and now you're getting more context for what you just watched, which works in a series because you have that gap there. Even when you're binging it, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're forced into the binge. You get me? But with a movie like this, when you're in the theater for 2.5 hours and you need to pee, that backstory starts looking really, really rough. But really, that is the only negative of this movie. Everything else is damn near a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. Like, everyone gets stuff. Zenitsu gets a good backstory. Shinobu, we learn more about her backstory, and she gets a pretty epic fight as well. This whole thing is just a bare-knuckle brawl straight on to the finish, the climax of this entire story. And admittedly, it just drags a bit in this last third. But even with that negative of the last third, I highly recommend this movie. Even the last third, I probably just say, pause the movie there, take a break, take a day, then come back and watch it. And I feel you'll just enjoy the movie a lot more. But if I were to really say anything else, we'd be going into spoilers. So if you don't want any of the spoilers, if you don't want me talking about details that are going to happen specifically inside of this movie, here's the time code right here at the bottom. For those who don't mind staying for the spoilers, we gotta talk about some of the awesome visuals in this. And maybe even some of the amazing characterizations of, say, Zenitsu. Now, the structure of this movie is mostly built around 3 fights. The first one is the Hashira Shinobu versus Upper Two Moon Doma. Next is Zenitsu versus his old classmate turned new member of the Upper Moons. God, what was his name? Kaigaku, that's his name. Kaigaku, I totally remembered that. Didn't need my phone. And the last fight is pretty much Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akasa, which is the rematch of the century where Tanjiro finally gets to avenge Rengoku himself. And I actually think this was a really good way of doing the movie because it feels like an ascending climb across all 3 fights. The first one where Shinobu unfortunately loses to Doma is really a setting of the stage. People are gonna die inside of this, and again, this is the spoiler section, so I will say this: only 2 of the Hashira make it out of this entire thing alive. Okay, so take your bets or read the manga, your choice. But starting with her actually losing, then going into Zenitsu versus Kaigaku, which makes you think, oh well, Zenitsu's probably gonna get killed here. He only knows one move, and he's fighting a guy who knows all of the other thunder breathing moves. But this is more just to show the growth of our main characters. Zenitsu really should lose this fight, but, well, he came in prepared. And when he finally does win it in spectacularly epic fashion, the way they frame it, too, especially in English, where they change the lines that Kaigaku is saying as Zenitsu's falling, about how he was always beneath him. He was always a lowly scrub compared to him. and then the framing changes, and suddenly you see Zenitsu pretty much above the guy in an instant. It shows visually, who's really above who. Loved it. Perfect framing. Just mwah. Chef's kiss. And then when we finally get into the big meat of the entire movie with Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza, you really do start to feel just how much they're raising the bar with their animation. You got platforms moving, you've got gravity shifting, you've got every single particle effect, every single timed movement we've seen, all of the water breathing styles that we've kind of gotten used to, we're seeing on full display here. And Tanjiro immediately, right off the bat, able to not only strike at Akaza, but even dodge and keep up with his attacks. You can truly see that Tanjiro has ascended to that Hashira level fighter by the end of this, in this opening bout, and it feels natural and great. I think the funnest moment, though, is when Giyu starts using the 10th water breathing form, the one that turns his blade into the water dragon, because you get to see that water dragon move and just bite off limbs and things. It is a fun, spectacular watch that when I finally do get a chance to, I'm just going to pause it at certain frames just to see the perfect bite chomp from this water dragon taking off limbs. Every frame of this is a work of art, which has been a thing for Demon Slayer pretty much since the first time we saw the Hinokami Kagura. Let's just be honest. Season 1, when that shows up, there's a reason it broke Twitter before anime could do that on a regular basis. And since we're already on the Akaza fight, I will just mention the backstory part for him after he gets his head cut and he starts to refuse to die. Really got tied in pretty damn well. I will fully admit it is the biggest problem with the movie, that it drags a lot. But the symbolism, the way that things start breaking down, the more that Akaza's words start getting turned on top of themselves about him hating weaklings and needing to get stronger, all these things being reflections and manifestations of his own insecurity for failing his future wife and basically adoptive dad as they got poisoned while he was away. As I said, in a bubble, this is probably the best backstory, or at least on par with Rui and how everything about him was, about abusive family relations. And I really loved how Akaza's getting his memories back, and we're seeing how it all ties together, seeing his body literally trying to regrow or reattach its head at points just to keep himself alive and get stronger, and how that's more a manifestation of what Muzan wants more than what Akaza wants. I loved the moment just before he died when he goes from his human form to just back to his instant demon form, and Muzan's grabbing his hair, trying to take control of him, getting to seep inside of his brain almost. The framing there was beautiful. And when he finally chooses to die and just end this fight because he was beaten decisively, beautifully by someone stronger than him. Again, if I did not need to pee in the theater at this point so badly, I probably would have cried. God, I can't believe I have to say it like that. This movie is just too long. This movie is too long. There's no way. I think it would have been better if they maybe cut some of this and spliced it into the fight. And it kind of looked like they were going that route at first. The first time Akaza starts seeing visions of his old master, he's there and he just kind of swats at him. I kind of hoped at that point they were going to change from the manga and just tie things in a little bit. But, what we got is still amazing. It may not be the perfect 10 out of 10. It might have been bumped down to the 9 or an 8, depending on how you see it. But it's still amazing. I can't stop gushing about this movie. It is so good. I will admit, though, I am still worried because I've been down this road before. I did watch the Fate movies, and this is kind of the same reaction I had to the first one, where I thought the first one was really good. The second one blew me away, as close to a 10 out of 10 as you can get. And then the last one, it was about a 7, which makes me really, really worried. I am optimistically hopeful, but I'm still going to probably tear this series a new one if they screw up the last movie, because I think that's really going to be the linchpin of all of this. Because if the last movie doesn't stand, these other two are kind of going to fall apart a bit. My personal verdict for this movie is that it's a must-see. But it's not something you can go into without seeing the rest of Demon Slayer first. So watch Demon Slayer. That's really the summation of this movie. And the summation of this review. Watch Demon Slayer. You will not be disappointed, even if it does fail at some of the pacing issues, especially with that last third. This is like an 8.5, a 9 out of 10 movie. It's a must-watch in my opinion. Go watch Demon Slayer and go see this movie in theaters. You will not be disappointed. And that's it from me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Demon Slayer? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments down below. Let's get some healthy discussion going. And as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all those things that help channel numbers go bigger. And yeah, that's it for me. So I guess I'll see you guys next time.